fight breakdown. It sounds very cliched, but that's really what was happening, is that my nervous system was simply breaking down due to the overwhelming demands I was putting on it. And that was really a time of choicelessness where I was faced with, very much suicidal tendencies, but also psychiatry and pharmaceutical drugs, and just a deep sense of knowing that I was lost, but not, I just knew that wasn't the path for me with Western medicine and psychiatry, and not to dismiss it for anyone else that's on that path, but for me it just didn't seem like it was the way I wanted to go. And that's when I found meditation. It was almost like the universe delivered it to me, just at the point where I was so broken and so lacking in resistance. It's like, okay, throw my hands up, this is the way I'm going to go. So that's when I found this device, this tool that really was so transformational in such a short period of time. It was like the light just went on very, very quickly, and it was like, oh, now I get it. This is where I'm supposed to be and which way I'm supposed to go. And that's really was a significant turning point in my life.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see the correlation, isn't it, between your, desperate state of, absolute crisis is really paralleled, isn't it, today in what we see in the world today. And, if you look around at what's happening with the global superpowers and the escalation that seems to be happening right now, and climate change, mass depression happening on the planet, it's like we are all affected collectively. Like we can't be, we think we're individuals, but actually we're all participants, and we're all being affected by the global situations that are occurring. So I think it's really, you make that really clear, I think. And then when you've brought together these different stories of people who've been through similar, or not similar, but traumatic experiences, and that's the heart of the stories, isn't it, that you've been telling in the book. So how did you come across the people that you decided to interview for the portal?
It's a bit of a cross-section, really. We had a research team who were taking the briefs that were sort of, they'd shift around a little bit sometimes, and take those briefs and try and brainstorm around ways to track people down through the internet and contacts and podcasts and medical papers, all sorts of things, studies. And then Tom and I were also kind of each on through our own readings and sort of contacts and interests, following up some leads. So I read a couple of books that there were people in there that had links to kind of on the expert side, on the transformational technology, working with that at that intersection between wellness and technology. So I came across Mikey Siegel and was pretty enthusiastic about trying to get him on board. And a friend recommended Daniel Schmachtenberger. Tom had been watching a lot of the case studies and veterans, a guy called Dr. Vernon Barnes, who was doing case studies with a series of veterans who were starting to do meditation programs through their brain injury clinic, and then asked the team to track him down, thinking that there's going to be some really, interesting and powerful stories here of transformation that are probably, some of them in most instances, I think that they were quite new to meditation. And so really being able to catch people early in the journey. So we just, kind of just like reached out through all of our networks and tried to find a nice cross-section of stories that would be appealing to all sorts of people, kind of no matter where your background, what your background is.
Yeah. And a lot of what you're saying there was very much spot on, in that the macro where we're at in the collective, which is why we brought in these experts, is to give a micro perspective of individual stories and their own personal crisis, which I went through and what inspired this film. But how, when we multiply that by 100,000, a million, a billion, 7 billion, what you see is a collective scenario happening, because the collective is only an expansion of the micro. And so that was really, a part of the process, is to show how each individual story contributes to the collective. And we see that a lot in the film and in the book as well. And that if we want to change the collective, we have to change the individual.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind kind of contributing to and tied into as well as a different thing. You know, how we exist in the world each day impacts the people around us, but also we're tied into this bigger picture. And so we tried to build some relationships there. Obviously, there's, you know, serious situations globally with human displacement and refugee crisis, you know, humanitarian issues, that kind of thing. So I tried to just in a gentle way find stories that also connected into that bigger picture thematically. So yeah, we've kind of had that dual prong approach.
Yeah. And Jacqui, what was your what was your motivation for joining with Tom to co-create this?
Oh, way back.
What's
I guess
the story?
my background is really in, I've got a lot of interest in high performance and kind of personal evolution and that kind of thing. So if I think about my relationship to meditation, it comes from trying to optimize my brain and maximum use out of it and I guess whole brain thinking, that kind of thing, and really being able to tap into creativity and be in flow and being able to tap into universal consciousness, I guess, all of that sort of stuff. So I had been doing all sorts of bits and pieces around the edges of meditation and some sort of informal meditation for a lot of years, I think, but it wasn't until I started on the film initially, and Tom invited me to come to do his course. So then since then I've had like a more formal meditation practice, which has been really cool, and I've noticed a lot of changes in that time. But yeah, so anything that I've realized in recent times when I think deeply about it, I'm very passionate about creating a different kind of media experience for people, that things aren't so disposable, that we're creating content that's meaningful and can actually help transform people's lives, shift perspectives, and also that the tools that can help us all on our own personal evolutionary journey. And there's there's a whole bunch of different ways that we can come at that. Meditation is one. We deal with a number in the film, but all of that sort of stuff. Yeah, I'm really interested personally in exploring it, and then globally how we can all implement this for kind of the greater good.
Yeah, because when one of the chapters that really fascinated me the most was the artificial intelligence, and that whole idea, and I forget the name of the woman who's pioneering that.
Dr. Julia Mockridge.
Yes. So she's saying that we can actually, through programming artificial intelligence, we can actually teach people how to be compassionate. And I just thought that was amazing, because, you know, artificial intelligence is starting to, you know, take over so much of our daily lives. And to see that as a tool for awakening, enlightenment and compassion, that's kind of counterintuitive, isn't it, to how we see machines, and, you know, in that way, we don't see them as tools of consciousness. Yeah, that was, I thought, amazing. And also, I think that link that seems to come out in all the stories between the meditation, practice of meditation, and the arising of compassion and kindness and love. So maybe you could talk a little bit about some of the stories and the ones that perhaps touch you the most in the book and in the film. Are there any that are particularly moving for you?
It's a really funny experience, you know, depending on what's going on in my life on a day, or, you know, like week, month sort of thing. I kind of connect in more to one story, you know, than others. Like, I like them all, but there can just be one that on that day it's just really, really powerful. I guess Zway's is one that I often really enjoy, that for a bunch of reasons. Obviously, I am really interested in the neuroscience side of it, but I love how kind of connected she is to being able to tell her story in just in a matter-of-fact way, and talk through some of the steps that she used to make some changes. And so I find I find her really relatable in that sense, because you kind of think, yeah, right. And, you know, when she found that she was being really negative and wanted to make changes to kind of, like, you know, balance that out in her brain. You know, I was watching more comedy and listening to more jokes, and it seems simple, but she talks through some sort of practical stuff there. So I think it's tangible, and that's nice. I've always got a soft spot for Ronnie and Kitra and their kind of story of coming back from crisis together. His daughter Kitra, who sort of has done their photographing that journey of coming back to life, I guess, for both of them, and there's stillness in motion. So I find him really, really, you know, inspiring in a sense of when you kind of forget. If I'm ever getting a little bit lost, he gets me back on track. I find all of them get me back on track, but there's something about Ronnie that's just puts everything in perspective.
Yeah, so for people who are, you know, listening, and people have all different kinds of challenges, you know, from post-traumatic stress to brain injuries or whatever it might be, anxiety. I think everyone has got something that they're being challenged by, you know, whether it's, you know, trying to be a high performance athlete or, you know, be successful in your career. So I think what the book does, it's appealing to so many different situations across the community. And it's not just, you know, like a lot of perhaps meditation books in the past have just gone to people who are seeking spiritual awakening, or they're seeking relief from stress. I mean, the story that touched me the most was the woman who was working in Afghanistan, and how she was aware that all her colleagues were so traumatized by the work, and nothing was done to take care of those people who were at the front line. And that when she discovered the power of meditation, started to introduce that to the people who are working in the UN in those high risk zones, that it started to change the culture. And you know, that's really inspiring, because it's just one person's experience of trauma and suffering can then be transformed into such a help for so many more people, that it doesn't just stay in that own individual's life.
Yeah, it's inside out change that she's got happening there. I love it at that level, with the coming in and sort of transforming the UN and other organizations that are global in that way.
And that was a big part of the process of the film creation, was to make sure that we could cover not just amazing stories, but global stories, but also really diverse stories. The key to this was to showcase that it doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter where you came from, doesn't matter what your crisis, what your background, what your current situation is. Everyone has within them this capacity for transformation, for alchemy, for a chrysalis moment. And this is the uniqueness and the beauty of this process, is that it's your own personal journey, and everyone's going to relate to different stories through where they're at, but to also know that it gives them hope and inspiration that they have that capacity too, no matter who they are and what their background is, that they've got within them that ability to transform. This is part of our own journey. Yeah, exactly. And so the film is coming out, it's going to be shown around Australia in October. Mm-hmm. Is that right? And so is this the first showing of it, or have you shown it elsewhere around the world, or is it just being premiered? We've had one screening in LA at a film festival called Dances with Films. And so that was our premiere there, just for one-off screening. So our release in September will be in the US, and then in October in Australia, and then in New Zealand in November. And then we'll be taking it basically where people can host the film on their own anywhere in the world. We've got people in Kansas and Mackay, Queensland's already registered, and got people in Ireland and Quebec inquiring about hosting their screening. So anyone who can't access it in the cinemas in where it's being screened can actually put it on in their local school hall or in a local cinema, or in their yoga studio, and we've got systems in place to enable the whole world basically to want to watch it if they want to watch it. And that's what we're really excited about, is bringing it to the communities of the world. Yeah, that's what we were talking about earlier, wasn't it? That this is just the start, isn't it, of a whole worldwide movement, which is so beautiful. So
Is there anything that you want to add or say in terms of like the proposition really is, do you really think that meditation can save the world, and how do you think that's going to happen? Because I know you have a project. There's another project called the Stillness Project.
Yeah, look, I think it's really probably important at this point to clarify, I think, that mess, because meditation itself doesn't change and save the world. Meditation is a really powerful device, and I know it's a sexy tagline, but I think if I have to be really transparent and clear on this, because meditation is the device or the vehicle that enables a shift in our own state of mind. And from that change in thinking, then we are the ones that go about making the world a better place. It's not like meditation is going to be this magic sort of cure-all. It's actually a really powerful device that helps us change the way we're thinking and seeing the world and relating to the world. And when that starts to happen, then the world itself starts to change. But it's really just using that device of meditation that helps us transcend the dogma, the program, and as Daniel and Mikey say in the film, this constant program that's been carrying through for generations that we continue to subscribe to. And meditation helps us transcend that and start to think more creatively, become more adaptable, break free of the conditioning, the molding, the PTSD, the trauma, and the experiences that we've had and the effect they're having on us, so that then we can be very clear, from a very clear canvas and a clear slate, go about creating the world that we think is possible and think clearly about that. And you want to speak about Mikey's invitation to us and as makers of this project, and Daniel's invitation to us as contemplating what life might be like on another planet.
I agree with Tom. It's a really incredible and essential tool, and I guess, and I think of it not only like limited to two sort of things, but if we sort of can manage through some of these tools and techniques to shift away from the past and things that are holding us back, plus we've got a mechanism to be able to start thinking about things in a new way, which is what needs to happen now, because this is ground up systems change that really needs to happen. So this is where the kind of like the holistic thinking and the whole brain thinking really comes into play, and being able to imagine something that's totally different from what we've ever seen before, because that's kind of where we need to go. And I always think about this thing that Mikey said. Mikey Siegel, one of the guys, he's a transformational technology developer and engineer and consciousness hacker, and he always says we create what we are, which I like to remember constantly, because, and he called us out during the interview. I posted about it the other day, which is why it's in Tom's mind, I think, fresh, because he called us out in a really loving way. And it was so amazing. I'm so glad that he did that. Just saying, I'm looking at you, the creators of this project, that your biases and your ideas and judgments and intention are going to impact everybody who sees this film. So it's like, what is that intention? What is that impact? Is that kind of helping people and helping people to become more expansive, that we become more expansive and so do others? Or are we continuing along biased lines and that kind of thing? Or is our pain getting transmitted in that way? And having those kind of daily reminders and I guess meditation as a tool to get on track with where you're at, and try and work through some of those personal life lessons so that we're bringing the best version of ourselves out into the world and help and reinvent. You can do Daniel's, it's your favorite. It's a really important one, this one. It's a really important thing.
Yeah, Daniel says in the film, and you might see it in the trailer as well, how he contemplates what life might be like on an enlightened planet. And, this was a really phenomenal concept for us, and something in Vedic tradition that, we subscribe to, and I've been studying for 25 years, is that we tend to look at our past a lot. We tend to look at where we're at a lot now, but what we struggle with is having a really clear vision and a really clear North Star about where we want to go. Because we don't know what we don't know. So it's really hard to know what that future could look like, and really challenging for us to even contemplate that. And people like futurists like Daniel Schmachtenberg, who have this remarkable capacity to kick that can a long way down the road, those who don't understand that expression, possibly in America, it means to look a long way into the future about possibility and get a very clear vision of what that looks like. And he invited us as makers of this project to invite our audience to start contemplating what that life might look like for them individually and collectively as a planet on an enlightened planet. And it's a really fascinating concept. And I really started to play with that when he sort of presented that to us. It's like, what would I do if I was enlightened? How would I speak? How would I eat? How would I drive my car? How would I interact with my family, friends, and colleagues? You know, and you really start to get, as he says, a very clear North Star about where you want to go with life. And that's something that this film, book, and project is all about. Is like, let's not just look at where we are. Let's not just look at using meditation. It's like, let's get a very clear vision for us as a human species about what we want to create together collectively on the planet, because it can be really phenomenal, but we just have to have a very clear idea about what that is and how we're going to get there.
Yeah, I think that's just spot on. You know, I think it's like we can't solve the problems by using the mind that created the problems. And I do feel that we're at such an amazing time in evolution where we can create our possible future for all of us, and it is the power of that connection to source, or to, you know, all that is, to visualize and dream and really feel it all fully at a quantum level, that this is possible, because that, I really truly believe, is our power. That is the power of creation that we all hold, and we can, meditation can unlock that power, and who knows what is going to happen. But if we don't go there, we know what is going to happen, actually, because it's being played out now. So I think that is the most exciting part of, and that's what the portal to me represents. You know, it's stepping through a doorway. You know, it's a multi-dimensional doorway, which is unknown. You know, it's the doorway into inner space, into all of space. And so it's exciting. It goes beyond, you know, dealing with the problems as a solution to actually being a vehicle, a way that we can co-create our futures. And I think it just comes down for me to just being really, how are you in this moment, in your heart? What is it that how would you truly like to live? You know, living in an enlightened way. It's not complicated, actually. It's really simple. So I think you've both done an amazing service to the cause, you know, of awakening and of collective awakening. Really looking forward to seeing the film. So just in closing, we've been speaking with Tom Cronin and Jacqui Fifer, who are the co-creators of The Portal. There's a beautiful book and a film that's coming to cinemas in Australia in October. So you can get more details. You've got a website for the portal, and what's the website address for that?
It's entertheportal.com.
Entertheportal.com.
And our social handle on most ones is entertheportal.now.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. So thanks very much for your time, and I'm sure we'll have another chat once we've seen the film.